financial decisions which lead to long-term financial planning will lead to sacrificing the short-term profit. Do you agree to this? And how do you tackle this in your price-sensitive business, edible oil, which is very much price-sensitive?
Yeah, very interesting question. In fact, we are into edible oil business, and which is very, very price sensitive. And in India, we have noticed that consumers are very, very price sensitive. So if one product is being offered at higher prices, that product must have some differentiation. So basically, in our organization, we believe in principle of 3 C's and 2 P's. That is cash, cost, compliance, and people and processes. So in our business, like cost efficiency and operational excellence is a must because you have to be a lowest cost producer. Otherwise, you won't be able to compete in the market. So we, every year, or you can say every moment, we try to find out new opportunities of cost savings so that we can reduce our cost of production. Apart from that, we invest heavily on automation and digitization. So machine learning, high data computing and forecasting model to forecast the demands and better realization, etc. So we use advanced models in that. And apart from that, this business is a commodity business. So there is a huge volatility in the price for edible oil internationally. And that led to a change in price in domestic market also. So we also use the high, you can say, high computing models like value at risk. Then we have volume at risk, cash flow, CFR, we call it cash flow at risk. So these models gives us how much to hedge, how much not to hedge, what is the risk appetite of the organization. So based on these models, we do hedge our commodities. And apart from that, we also look at the currency volatility. So in this kind of business, you should not make money out of the hedging if you want to remain competitive. So we always believe that as far as currency goes, you have to be 100% hedged. And how you reduce your cost of hedging, that is most important. So we take various types of structured products, options, where my cost of hedging is less so that I remain competitive. And of course, product differentiation. So we keep on innovating our products. We keep on introducing new types of oil. Like if I talk about soybean oil, so we produce the lightest oil in the country, which is the most transparent oil. And as far as mustard oil goes, this is one of the best oil we produce in the country. And we display the pungency also on the packaging. So that kind of product differentiation we do so that we remain competitive and customers are aware about our products. So these are the areas we keep on focusing so that we create long-term value in the organization.
Market is now volatile. Currency is fluctuating. Raw material prices are increasing. And I think your major, most important raw material has been imported. Okay. And there are regulatory changes. So what is your take on identification of growth opportunities in this dynamic market conditions?
Well, we are totally import-driven industry. So entire raw material is coming by way of import. We are importing from Latin America, Russia, Ukraine, Indonesia, Malaysia. So the current policy changes and the landscape of currency depreciation and government increasing import duties, etc., that is creating a lot of volatility in the market. So as an edible oil producer, we need to look at the backward integration, basically the plantation within the country itself. So a lot of area countries developing on the palm plantation, mainly the northeast and the southern state, where you can grow your plants and then you crush and produce edible oil. So this is one of the area. Apart from that, we are now looking more opportunities from the waste. Basically in the oil, there are a lot of byproducts which are being generated and which are being used in various applications, especially in soap manufacturing and a lot many other applications are there. So as Nishant said, government is focusing more and more into renewable. So being an edible oil company, now I would like to tell you that we are the largest producer of biodiesel in the country. So we are producing biodiesel from the waste of palm oil, and which is getting mixed in the diesel itself. So this is a big business opportunity, and we have invested a lot of money also in the recent times. We have increased our production capacities, being a largest producer of biodiesel. And apart from that, uh, since this is a oil sector where apart for indigenization, you can do a lot of collection of used oil also. So we are now collecting used cooking oil from various sources, from the hotels, restaurants, etc. And then we reprocess them. After reprocessing, we are producing biodiesel from that. So which is going into renewable clause. Okay, so this is the biggest business opportunities we can see being a edible oil producer. And of course, we are doing diversification also apart from edible oil. So we are moving into more kitchen items, food especially. Like we have spices, we have soya chunks. We are now moving more into ready-to-eat category and ready-to-cook category. So we'll be launching more products. So edible oil being a traditional business, we are continuing, but looking at the challenging environment, we are diversifying into various other businesses which can give us sustainable profits.
Right. So it's about reused cooking oil. Government have come up with the regulation few years back that reused cooking oil has to be sold because you can't use the same oil again and again because it is very harmful for the health. So do you think that business is actually going and actually you are able to procure the oil, reused oil?
Very difficult because India being a country where even I don't know how many household throw the oil in the drains or they sell oil because we use large drop of oil. But then of course there are regulations where hotels and restaurants they have to sell the used cooking oil, and there are policy guidelines also towards that. Though people are circumventing, but still some honest restaurants and hotels, they are selling. So very difficult to get the used cooking oil from the market. But then gradually awareness is coming and people are selling oil. And that is why we are able to, get a lot of used cooking oil and we are producing biodiesel out of that.
Right, the five-star hotels and the reputed restaurant they can sell because this will show their credibility also that they are providing right product and using right material for the restaurants. But at large it is now difficult. माने सब कोई नहीं करते हैं ये चीज.
5 स्टार से होरेका में आ जाता है, छोटे
हाँ,
रेस्टोरेंट
छोटे
खरीद लेते
रेस्टोरेंट में आ
हैं,
जाता है. They sell to the vendors.
छोटे रेस्टोरेंट से हॉकर्स के पास आ जाता है. Then lastly, as I said, some good reputed houses they are selling. So that is at least we are getting those kind of.
So in near future, can you think कि instead of importing, you can procure considerable portion of your raw material indigenously?
Not really, because India consumes almost 15 million tons. So that much of oil is not available even domestically. So we have to be dependent on imports. Soybean crop is not much in India. So entire soybean and sunflower oil is coming from Latin America and USSR. So palm oil coming majorly from Indonesia, Malaysia, but then destination countries, means sourcing, countries, they are also putting a lot of restriction on import because more and more palm oil is going into biodiesel production in their respective countries also. And that is why, once upon a time, like if I talk about, because I worked in metal also, so we used to call zinc as a dog metal because prices used to be the lowest as compared to copper, aluminium. And similar condition was for palm oil. Palm oil cost was the lowest. Now palm is the costliest oil as compared to soybean and sunflower. So scenario has changed because more and more palm oil is going into biodiesel. So that is creating scarcity in the market. So complete, you can say, domestic sourcing is not feasible. But then, as an industry, we are moving to more and more other oils like groundnut oil, if we call it mustard oil, then some soybean oil also being produced.
Right. So actually, Mr. Sandeep, with the growing trend of health consciousness and wellness, because you are dealing in edible product and it is supposed to be not good for the health, how is the edible oil industry changing its product offerings to meet the evolving demand?
Well, edible oil, as you know, people say it is not good for health, but then sometimes you have to create product differentiation so that it is good for health also. Like during COVID times, we added vitamins in the edible oil and we came out with a product called Immunity Booster. So people, and that product was quite hit in the market during COVID times. So product differentiation is important. And apart from that, oil being oil, you have to consume it. So as a company, we need to look at where we can, diversify. And that is why I said in the earlier remarks also, we are diversifying into food products. So like nutrition product like soya chunks, which is the alternate to, you can say, meat for vegetarians. A lot of people consume soya chunks, which is a quite protein-based product. And similarly, we are coming out with more and more protein-based products in the market so that this is give the customers health awareness. And, oil is being also consumed by the people, but they want clear-cut knowledge about the product. So you have to be very transparent what kind of contents are there in the oil. So whether it is harming your health or not, that kind of messages you need to clearly display in your advertisement, in your product labels, etc. And sustainable farming, whether these are, because youngsters nowadays talk about sustainability and this is a buzzword in the market. So now whether your product is sustainable product or not, that is also very important. So we also look at whether the oil coming to India from overseas, whether farming was sustainable or not, whether proper farming techniques were used or not, whether child labor, child abuse, etc., all these things were there or not. All these things, and we take a certificate from the suppliers that these are sustainable farming and sustainable crude oil. And based on that, then we bring the product in India. So these are the steps we can take, but otherwise edible oil being oil, so there is no alternate, basically.
Can it be healthy?
It is, edible oil is not unhealthy, you can say. Only thing is you need to keep on changing the oil. Sometime, maybe 2-3 months, you use soybean oil, then you change to sunflower oil. Then you change to rice bran oil. Rice bran is produced from the rice husk. So this is a good oil. So olive oil and other things people talk, but these are not cooking oil. These are only for dressings. So cooking oil, there is no alternative. You have to go for either soybean or sunflower or maybe rice bran oil. And groundnut oil is now gaining popularity once again. So to meet the customer demands, now we are coming out with the cold press oil. So which is more healthier options, you can say. Groundnut oil can be a cold press oil. Mustard oil is good for health. And, we have heard from our forefathers that, mustard oil has several benefits. Similarly, coconut oil, this is also a very, very good option as far as health is concerned.
So,
cold press oil like mustard, whatever oil we are producing right now from say palm oil, soybean oil, these are refining process where oil is heated at very, very high temperature. So in cold press, there is no temperature. Basically like mustard oil, we are producing mustard oil by crushing the oil seeds, that mustard oil seeds in a kolu. So there is no heat generated much. So that is why oil, after heating twice and thrice, it loses all its value. So cold press it's not heated, so it's retaining all its nutrients.
right, that's why used cooking oil is more harmful.
Yes.
Mami Agrotech is now a listed company. So do you think for you comparatively red flags are less than the company which are going to be listed or the listed company?
Not really. It again depends on the tone at the top. So we as a Imami Group, we are following the highest compliances in terms of, in every aspect of the business, because Imami is our flagship company, which is a listed entity, and we have few more listed entities. Though Imami Agrotech is not listed, but across the group we follow the same standard and same sort of compliances. So we never compromise on compliance.
What will be the metric on the basis of which you will judge the profit, you will analyze the profit? So can please display the question.
So for me, all the four elements are not relevant. Okay, so for a
So I
success,
missed the other option, none
yes,
of the.
yes. So I think for an investor and even for the company or for a CFOs or finance community here, the best indicator of any business is free cash flow. How much free cash flow the business is generating after meeting all its obligation, that should be measured because PAT can be manipulated, EBITDA can be manipulated, EBIT can be manipulated, free cash flow cannot be manipulated. So this has to be measured by way of free cash flow.
That is okay, but out of these four, because we are talking about the profitability, and if you are having four options and you are to select one of these four.
So if that be the case, then I will go for EBITDA because how much operating profit business is generating, that is relevant. Because if your EBITDA keep on growing, then you will be able to repay your debts also. Your interest can be reduced also growing forward. But if your EBITDA is not healthy, then of course you will not be able to meet other obligations.
And if for you also, digitalization, AI is very important. So how you are integrating it?
Yeah, in fact, we are investing heavily on the digitization. In fact, in our company, almost 20 years back, we implemented SAP, and we are continuing. Now, as I told earlier, we have invested a lot of money on, uh, you know, supply chain optimization, where forecasting of demand, then with complex model, we are estimating our value at risk VAR model or maybe CFAR models, which are quite helpful in commodity, hedging mechanism. And now we are the first company in Eastern India. We have recently signed with Salesforce, and we are implementing that Salesforce platform for our dealer distributor. So as a group, we are very focused on technology, and
Anything on AI? These are the technology part.
so AI nudges will be there in the Salesforce, where the machine learning tools will give us the various type of demand forecast, or that will give us what customer wants or what dealer distributor want real time basis. All the salesperson or people on the field, they will get the you can say alerts that this dealer wants this much, that dealer wants that much. So that kind of software we are implementing right now. And as I said, machine learning, which is completely on AI forecast, that demand forecasting what we do. So it's based on machine learning model, based on the historical data, demand is being forecasted, where we are using AI in a great way.